Hi everyone, Monique here, Intuitive Soul Savant. Bless you and bless me. I'm very grateful for being able to speak into your life and your soul. Please subscribe and like and drop a comment in the comments box. That helps me to no end. Namaste. So today I have a lovely story all about SEDNA. Now, SEDNA is a dwarf planet, okay, and it's a TNO, okay, it's trans-Neptunian orbit, all right, but I really feel the energies of SEDNA being very similar to Pluto. And the reason that SEDNA is so important to us astrologers is because our consciousness is expanding beyond the luminaries and the planets that astrology has been studying. And in the Vedic astrology, those outer planets aren't looked at, but we're evolving as a collective. We have Pluto ingressing into Aquarius for the last time this year. So at the moment, Pluto's retrograding back into Capricorn just for a short time. So we all know that there's changes going on the planet, all right? Now, SEDNA ingressed into Gemini is going to be helping Pluto as a minion with the transformation of the collective. And Pluto in Aquarius rules astrology. So it's very important for us to expand our consciousness to the furthest outer space that we probably can, because there's so much that we can learn, all right? So I'm going to tell you the little story. It's a folk story, folklore, that the Inuits would pass down through their generations. Now, these stories are very important, and it's only in the last, say, 20 years astrologically, even less than that, probably since 2012, that we've really started to see the folklore, the myths, the Roman, the Greeks, all of these myths, and how we can find understanding and expand our consciousness by knowing these stories. And my ancestors, Australian Aboriginals, this is how we passed the language down, all right? There was no paper, there was only rocks to be drawn on, but it was through stories, okay? And when you look at all the different religions, they've got very similar stories, okay? But today we're going to talk about the Inuit story of SEDNA. Now, the Inuits are up in the Arctic Circle, they lived, and Greenland, you would call it. This story goes way, way back, a very, very long time. Now, the importance of SEDNA is her orbit is 11,400 years. That's the orbit, okay? That's how long it takes for SEDNA to do one full circle orbit, all right? She's also known to be out in the Oort cloud for astronomers, all right? And the last time that SEDNA, the dwarf planet, came close, the closest it gets to Earth, that was when we came out of the Neolithic age. So we're living in caves. SEDNA comes the closest she can to Earth. We walk out of the caves and we start agriculture rather than just killing animals to eat. We start to work into grains coming into our body. So can you see that big change for the collective, even though the collective was very small back then? It creates a huge change in the way that a human lives on this planet. So the consciousness was expanded out into agriculture, all right? So let's start with the story of SEDNA. Now, SEDNA there's a couple of versions, and with folklore, like Chinese whispers, you know, the story gets changed, but it's not about the story. It's about the consciousness and the deep meaning in the story, all right? So Sedna was a very, very beautiful girl. Her mother had passed away, and she lived with her father. And her father had all the spoils. He was doing very, very well for himself. However, patriarchy, you know, the father's goal is to marry off his daughter to the best suitors. Now, because she was so, so beautiful, a lot of suitors, you know, wanted her hand in marriage, but she was very single-minded, and you know, she ends up a goddess, but she's the, you know, she's the divine feminine, where she didn't feel that she needed to have a husband to make her feel whole. Now, one story is that she had a dog, and that dog would shapeshift into a husband. Now, I think we don't take that metaphorically. And so her father was just outraged by this. No, you've got to marry a man. That dog that shapeshifts into a man every evening, that is not your partner. Okay, so that's one version of the story. Okay, and then there's this other version that the father was out hunting and got into trouble, and this stranger helped him out of trouble. Now, this stranger wore a black hoodie, we'll call it. Okay, so his face was covered, but he helped Sedna's father, and the father said, "How can I repay you?" This stranger said, "I have 3 sons." And Sedna's father said, "I have a daughter. I could give you my daughter to repay you for helping me out in the danger in the forest." All right, that's one story. All right, and that's nice. That's nice to sort of understand how Sedna was given to be married to the strangers. All right, so after much fighting with her father, Sedna had to go with this man. He arrived, but the thing with this stranger, whether it was a son or whether it was just a strange man, he was covered, and he lied to Sedna and told Sedna that he had all the riches, all the food, all the furs, all the comfortability. Remember, Sedna's been in Taurus for thousands of years. So we look at our Taurus archetype, and we look how far we've come since this story, as far as agriculture goes, as far as our comfort goes, all the food. I've made a Taurus video. It's all in there, the Taurus energy, okay? So Sedna has been in Taurus, all right, and is now in Gemini, and will be in Gemini until 2067. I will be 101 when Sedna moves into Cancer. Okay, so Sedna went off with this gentleman in marriage, and they traveled far across the oceans to this gentleman's place in the hoodie. And when she arrived, she realized that she had been lied to. It was not what she thought. And the hoodie came off, and a raven was underneath that hoodie. She had been tricked. She had been betrayed by her father, firstly, for allowing her to go with this man. All right. And she had to sleep on the slimy rocks. The ravens ate fish, and so they could only feed her fish. Right. So time had passed. She was very unhappy. She went into shadow work. See how it's very similar with Pluto. She went into the depths. She was married to this raven. She was uncomfortable. She didn't get what she was promised. So therefore, she was in the dark night of the soul. All right. And then her father thought that he would come and check on her, whether or not he heard rumors that she wasn't doing as well as what he had expected. And he traveled across the oceans to where SEDNA was living with the bird people, the raven and the bird people, they called them. And he was horrified. He also had been betrayed by this stranger with lies. So he thought he'd take SEDNA back. And he's in his boat. And he put SEDNA into the boat. SEDNA's quite happy because, oh my gosh, Dad saved me. And they're going across the ocean, but the raven and the bird people saw them in the boat and trying to escape. And they flapped their wings so violently that the sea came up with great big waves and big storms, and the skies went dark. And the father got very, very scared. And what he did was he thought of himself, and he looked after himself and threw SEDNA out the boat, because he knew that the raven and the bird people wanted SEDNA. They didn't want him. So he threw her out of the boat and he jammed the oar into her eye. But she kept clinging on to the side of the boat with her fingers, white knuckling it, we call it. She kept clinging and clinging and clinging, and he's banging the oar on her fingers. Then he grabbed for his knife, his hunting knife, and he chopped off all her fingers, and down went SEDNA into the depths of the ocean. Now, beautiful SEDNA, she had beautiful hair. And when we think of the feminine energy, it's long, beautiful hair. And as she was sinking, her hair was getting all mucked up in knots and all ugly. And she sank down into the ocean, and it is believed, folklore, that her fingers turned into the whales and the walruses and the seals, because previous to this, there was no mammals in the ocean that the people knew of. And SEDNA went down, down, down into the underworld of the ocean. So the Inuit people prayed to the goddess mother of the sea, SEDNA, every time they would go out to hunt for fish, right, or were in trouble on the ocean, for a safe journey, okay? Because back in the day, gods and goddesses were very, very important, and even to this day, people worship gods and goddesses, right? So this is the story, all right? Now, with SEDNA ingressing into Gemini till 2067, she is going to come closest to the Earth again. Transformation for the collective. We are expanding our consciousness. Going into Gemini. Gemini is the mind, the imagination. We are going to be experiencing a life, whether it's us or our younger generations. They're going to be experiencing a life so dramatically different that our imaginations cannot even comprehend the future for us. You can imagine back in the cave days, we're all living in caves, we're in the fire, and we decide, hey, let's move out onto the land. All right, that's a big step, living in a cave, to coming out and feeling safe enough to live in the land, build houses, build towns, build transport to reach each other. This has all come from that change from the Neolithic age, right? And we're heading into the golden age, right? Now, this is very important with Gemini, because the mind and the ocean is humanity's last frontier. We haven't mastered the mind yet, okay? And we don't know everything that we could know about the oceans. We've gone into outer space. But here on planet Earth, we haven't mastered the mind, and we haven't looked after our oceans, and realized the beauty that the ocean holds for us and the power. There is power in those waters. We have communication with power. I've been speaking to water since 2014. Every week I have a ritual, all right? And I pray over my water. I have 3 15-gallon containers, 45 litres of water I have on, that I've prayed over, that's there. I don't drink any other water other than the water that I've been speaking to since 2014. And we know with Dr. Emoto that water has consciousness, okay? So this is why the SEDNA story is very, very important to us. I'm doing a 2-year meditation mentorship from a fantastic book called The Mind Illuminated. I always get that back. Illuminate the mind illuminated. Okay, so my mind I'm mastering. Why? Because it causes me suffering. Okay, the thoughts can cause suffering. But to master the mind, we become enlightened. And there are already enlightened souls on planet already, Eckhart Tolle, just off the top of my head. So, yes, I'm an astrology teacher. However, I don't like to be all foo-foo about ascension, okay? Because as an earth sign, I'd rather the masses be able to speak to the masses without getting too woohoo. There's a lot of woohoo on the internet. Let's keep it grounded. Let's keep this expansion of consciousness, ascension. Let's keep it grounded and in language that everybody can understand. All right. Otherwise, it's rejected as woohoo. All right. So through this story, and with SEDNA coming the closest to Earth that it's been since 11,500 years ago, right? The energy, that's what it's all about on this channel. The energy, the story doesn't matter. It's about the energy. So humanity is going through an awakening, right? And an expansion of consciousness, right? And SEDNA's story is there to help us understand the outdated support systems. I very much resonate with SEDNA's story because a lot of you who have watched all my videos know that my family left me for dead, put me out on the cold. So with SEDNA hanging on to the side of the boat for looking for support and safety, I very much understand the betrayal and the being cut out of the family system, also that they can feel safe because my light's too bright for them and my information is BS as far as they're concerned. But that doesn't worry me because I've gone through that Pluto transformation. Yes, it hurts. You've seen me cry on here, but it's a transformation that we're going to realize that nobody's coming to save us. No daddy, no mummy, no government. No one's coming to save us. We are going to be doing this as individuals, Pluto in Aquarius, for the collective. We are all one. So those outdated support systems, our agriculture, look where it's got to now. We need change, okay? The keywords for SEDNA, transformation, spiritual destiny. That was SEDNA's spiritual destiny, to be the goddess of the sea. The sacrifice that probably her dad made when he had to marry her off, because that was what happened back then. The regeneration of SEDNA's fingers becoming the sea mammals, okay? And that's when the Inuits started fishing, all right? And the abuse from the raven who lied about what he had and what his kingdom had so that he could lure SEDNA, because she was so beautiful. Everybody wanted SEDNA. And he wanted Sedna, this raven, to himself and the bird people. All right. And so in a way, she would have felt abandoned because she didn't want to go. She wanted to stay with her dog, who was a shapeshifter and became a husband overnight, which her father was horrified about. Okay, so in her story, she didn't want to marry that dude. And I get that. Okay, that was not my story of, okay, when I grow up, I'm going to marry a guy and get the picket fence and blah, blah. That was not my story. I Pluto conjunct Uranus, Mars and Venus in Aquarius. I was rebellious to the system, okay? However, I was codependent on the support system of the father. I'm Capricorn. Saturn rules the father. So I really relate to this story where the father was looking after himself and get out, Sedna, they want you. Go, Sedna, go. You know, and there's no trigger there for me anymore. However, I can see my story and that story in alignment. All right. It's a beautiful story. But what I really am telling you the story about is for you to understand that Pluto has a minion called Sedna, right? And they're going to be in great aspect to each other. All right. Aquarius to Gemini. However, the mind, you know, and we have Jupiter ingressing into Gemini. If you're watching this afterwards, you know, Jupiter was only there for a year. However, Uranus is ingressing into Aquarius. And that will be my next video because Gemini is getting lit. Okay. And what does Gemini rule? Communications, our minds, our own personal minds, communications. Me and you, right? Communicating together in the with the other earth air sign, Libra, in relationship. Okay, so the light, Gemini is going to get lit, everybody. So be prepared for that. Be prepared. Gemini is very fast moving compared to where Sedna's been for the last 11,500 years in Taurus, right? So it's all been about making ourselves comfortable. Okay, and now what do we realize? Oh, that doesn't make me happy, having all the money in the world, having all the houses in the world. Yes, it gives me choices, but does it really make me happy? Okay, where does happiness come from? Our thoughts. Thinking, I'm okay. I don't need all that. I'm okay because I am spiritual. I have a spiritual destiny. I'm a spirit in a human body. And I'm here to be part of the collective to expand into the golden age. So keep it in mind. You got Sedna there, Jupiter coming across, and then Uranus, and eventually Chiron. And eventually Chiron and Saturn's going to be there in the next, 10 odd years. Okay, so that Gemini house of yours, it's going to be lit. Okay, but you're part of the collective as an individual. So we do our work, we transform, we regenerate, transmute the old support systems. And in my case, it was my family, relying too heavy on them and not following my light. All right, I love this story and I love storytelling. I love storytelling. So I'm going to leave it there. I want you all to have a lovely weekend. It's Saturday here on the east coast of Australia. And we're going to talk about more Gemini videos coming out. All right, so namaste. I love you all. And thank you. Hello to the new subscribers. I was a bit cranky last week. My natal Saturn transit Saturn was opposing my natal Pluto and Uranus conjunct, so I felt a bit cranky. But I'm in it with all you guys. We're all in it together. It's not easy times transforming. It's not easy to come out of the cave. Okay, it's scary out there where it's all new. All right, So I hope by telling SEDNA's story, you can understand we have help from out there in a respect by the transits of our luminaries, our planets, and our dwarf planets. And let's get to know more about our dwarf planets. So thank you, everybody. Love you, and I'll see you soon.